Okay, thanks again so much for joining us in the Web3 track room here at AWE. Happy to state that we have the next presentation right on time, mapping the Web3 immersive platforms with our presenter, Julian Reyes. Welcome, Julian. Warm welcome, please.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I realize it's late in the afternoon, so thanks again for attending. My name is Julian Reyes, and as far as I could remember, I've always had a deep connection to technology, art, and music. I'd like to share some of my personal journey with you. I've been passionate about electronic music and its emergence of different subgenres for decades. I've been mapping those developments. I actually travel to international music festivals. I go in different capacities, sometimes as a DJ, sometimes as a producer. And I've produced a lot of films around that culture, Burning Man, festivals, music. And I see a parallel between those worlds and the music, right? Because if you think about it, music creates community, music creates different worlds. These are some of the events that I've produced in XR, as well in music. Some notable ones are in 2017, we hosted Brett Leonard, the director of Lawnmower Man, in a church where we had DJs and VR and art. And in another event in 2018, we created an event where I had David Starfire live stream in VR his music into a nightclub in San Francisco called the Great Northern. So I just want to show you kind of that legacy of events. In my professional life, I've worked in 3D animation for demonstrative evidence, which that means court trials, accident recreations. I worked a lot in failure analysis and design. So I've had two parallel lives, which is this music and DJ world and the XR world. I've also was part of the Oculus Launchpad program, and the agenda is kind of packed, so I'm going to try to go as fast as I can, but basically I'm covering some aspects of the past, present, and future of virtual worlds. I'm sharing information about a mapping system that I'm developing. I'm going to show you some videos of different technologies and the MetaTr versal portal cross, which I find very exciting, and there was a talk earlier about that. And I want to share about OMI, the XR Guild, and ethics. So virtual versus immersive. I use these terms interchangeably because I feel that with the advancements of head-mounted displays, the lines were going to continue to blur, and eventually all worlds will be immersive in one way or another. Kind of like the same thing that you have frictionless effort when you text somebody on the phone, right? That wasn't always the case. That's technology that was developed. In the future, you're going to have that ability. Talking about friction, usually in a classical term, you're talking about time, distance, and effort. That's what prevents you from achieving a goal. But when it comes to app development and experience development, you have different considerations. There is emotional friction, cognitive friction, and interaction friction. And I wanted to point that out for world builders so they can build better worlds and think of putting people first and not get so enamored with the technology that they don't put that into consideration. Now, I want to go as far back as I can when it comes to talking about these virtual worlds. And some interesting keyframes to consider from the past is the concept of that virtual worlds like predates technology. They've been recorded stories in Roman times by Pliny the Elder of Natural History book, and they were talking about perceptual illusion and alternate realities back in those days. And then one could make the argument that playing Dungeons and Dragons is, in essence, creating virtual worlds, right? Whether it's on paper, whether it's on a 2D dungeon, whether it's on a 3D avatar system, and whether it's on VR. Now, this is really interesting to me. This is the first network 3D multi-user game which predates the internet by a lot. And I wanted to show you this video because it kind of shows you the history and kind of the progression, and you can actually see where games like Dune and other games evolve from.
This is my Imlab PDS-1V, which was born in about 1972. And it was one of the first graphics computers. It's a vector graphics machine. And it was the machine that Maze War was originally written for.
And we're playing Maze War right now as we speak with the other workstations down there.
It's right here.
This is us right there. Okay.
Oh, there was the bot there.
There's a bot there. You wait 2 seconds and you get shot.
I don't know where he was, or where he went. The bot is right up there. He is. We're gonna
And
die.
you can see how this inspired films and other games. Evo just told me that this actually inspired the movie Tron and a lot of the special effects industry when artists played these games. Now, talking about the present, I want to fast forward past Second Life, right? And I know I skipped a lot, but what is interesting to me is that I'm seeing a split within those worlds, kind of like what happens in electronic music that I alluded to earlier, where electronic music kind of goes into different subgenres. You have these worlds that are now requiring different login protocols, right? You have the Web2 worlds that ask for your email address or your social media account, but the Web3 worlds are starting to ask for your wallet. And I call this the Web2 and Web3 split, and I'll come back to that later. I just wanted to point that out. And that is the biggest difference to me, is that identity layer, which it's evolving as we speak. Now I want to talk about some other platforms. This is Hubs, and what I find really interesting about Hubs is that they host a hack week where designers get together and explore technologies to improve their platform and anything that is any experiments. And this actually image shows them working on portals to go from world to world and platform to platform. And I think that's really forward thinking, and I wish more platforms kind of hosted these type of hackathons. Spatial, it is a program that I'm using a lot for our events at Metaverse Workshop. They just announced at GDC their creator toolkit, which offers flexible designing and building worlds. And another thing I love about them is they have, you can enter through a web browser, VR, or mobile. So you have 3 different ways to enter the world. And they're the inheritor of a lot of the fan base that happened after the sunsetting of AltSpace. So a lot of those users went to Spatial and also VR Chat. Additionally, they teamed up with Ready Player Me and Polycount to host a massive immersive world for Vogue. So that's another thing to note. It's that not only is the technology advancing, but the partnerships are also advancing. Roblox just got together with Forever 21, and they created a world that's been visited 260,000 times. And their latest collection used generative AI, which is also another first. And I want to mention Metaverse, the company by Julie and Alan Smithson. They've created a Metaverse Mall where they actually have the Juicyverse. They're hosting it there. So you can see how brands are really capitalizing on these virtual worlds. And then I want to talk a little bit about Action Island. It is a game that I helped create in Horizon Worlds, which people wrongly refer to as the metaverse a lot of the time. And what I find interesting is that a lot of the top designers in there, they're created the algorithms and the mathematics for the point system and the ranking system, and this is all user-generated content. Now, I believe that there's going to be another layer. There's the UGC that we've always talked about, but now there's the user-generated experiences that are created on top of that content. This world is interesting also because they have a community in Facebook where they gather. They actually print out T-shirts in real life. There's a tournament starting tomorrow that the community put together, and it's about to be visited 500,000 times. That's 500,000 visits of gameplay, which is really interesting and something that kind of it's overlooked when you talk about the hype that goes around that world that's often mislabeled. The Oslo Metaverse, I've been tracking that for a while. Jay's really adamant about allowing people to jump in there and kind of experience it. They've added a Web3 layer for IP holders to experiment with virtual strategies. So I think it's a good cost-effective way for businesses to kind of go in at a low friction as it pertains to Web3. And then rounding out the present and looking into the future, I want to point out that Lamina One in their April white paper, in their areas of future research, page 47, they're talking about exploring portals, like wormholes from world to world to platform. And if Lamina One is looking at those things, that's really exciting for the future of immersive worlds. Now, there's some other categories of worlds that I've been tracking, but I'm not including yet. I talked to Dan Mapes of Spatial Web, and the Spatial Web is a way to merge and connect the digital world with the physical world. It's kind of like the ultimate digital twin. And they have an interesting way of looking at this technology. And they will also have worlds that emerge with that technology, but I'm not mapping them yet until they start emerging. Another eventuality that I see is the AI worlds that are created, and then I will be tracking those in the future. And then the companies that are working at the intersection of AI and XR, and we've talked about a lot about that at AWE, I believe that they're at the forefront of world building, right? And it's not only that AI affects XR. XR also affects AI, and I have some research that goes into that, so I will be posting this, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm willing to share all of this information. There is a demo that some of you might have seen by Lovelace Studios. It's called the NIRIC demo, which shows how prompting creates digital environments. And I definitely want to show you so you can have a view of what's to come when it comes to that mixture of AI and XR.
Welcome to NIRIC, the next frontier of personalized AI-generated gaming. With millions of possibilities and growing, NIRIC is the ultimate sandbox for your imagination. The power to create and explore is in your hands. Are you ready to unleash your imagination?
So they're using ChatGPT, Polyhive, Sloyd, and Unreal's Nanite and Lumen to create all of that. And I think that's really amazing work that they're doing. If you want to learn more about Lovelace, I want you to check out the John Radoff interview with Kyla Kamali of Building the Metaverse in his YouTube channel. It's really cool. It really goes into depth in many different ways. Another company that it's really impressive along these lines is Blockade Labs with their Sketch to Skybox demo. So here, the designer actually just sketches an idea, puts in a prompt, and then that generates a skybox. And you see the prompts at the bottom is they can write in to enhance their sketch. So in tracking the trackers, I'm not the first to attempt to put all this information together. I wanted to give a shout out to my friend Carlos Austin. He's a videographer in XR. I see him in all of these worlds, and I do a fair bit of building, but mostly I build in order to create events so I can test the system and then kind of be able to compare all the different worlds. That's the way that I go about it. I also wanted to shout out Ryan Schultz. He works at the University of Manitoba for over 27 years. And he's created a comprehensive list of AR and VR platforms, and you can find his list. It's organized differently than what I'm looking at it, but I definitely wanted to mention him because he's been doing that for a very long time. And then I also came across Metaverse with the ED at the end. They're a company out of the UK, and then for 2 decades, they have consulting with brands and companies with detailed maps of virtual worlds and metrics. And I'm happy to announce that I'm working directly with them right now. We formed a partnership, so they're gonna actually help me curate the data for my mapping project that I wanna share with you guys. This is an example of one of the side projects that we have is we're going to create a curated list of the most visited Web3 platforms, and we're gonna actually share the monthly users, but more importantly, I wanna create a video for each of the worlds. Because if you think about it, there's like over 100 virtual worlds out there, but nobody knows what they look like. Nobody knows what the experience is like. But if you have a way to kind of sample them, I think that'll be advantageous for everyone. And you also can understand what clustering they do as far as their technology and which will connect easier than others. So back to what I was saying about the Web 2, Web 3 split. This is really important because if you look at Web 1, it was your email, right? And if you look at Web 2, it's your email and your social media. So I'm putting those together in one pillar. The Web 3 are requiring your wallet, right? Now, of course, there's some that you can do either or, but what I'm doing is I'm mapping anything that uses blockchain technology for any reason, right? So you can log in as the Web 2 way, but if you can buy NFTs or you can like get in your NFT car and drive around the world, I'm mapping that as a Web 3 platform. So those are the 2 main pillars that I have. But there's a third category, which is mostly comprised of WebXR. Now, I don't call it WebXR because I know that there's other technologies that are actually a part of this kind of open metaverse view, and that's what I choose to call them, the open metaverse platforms. Now, I'm not calling them that because I think they're the metaverse. In fact, I think we're many years away from that. Any platform that claims to be the metaverse, I believe that it's a misnomer. I also believe that metaverse with an S, it doesn't make sense. The metaverse is many years away, and what I'm doing is I'm just mapping the virtual worlds that can potentially become that. That's the way that I view it. And what's really cool about these is that you can explore these anonymously, right? You can go in and just put your name and use the avatar system that they have, or you can import your own avatar that you created, or you can actually have a predetermined avatar that you can choose from, or you could bring your Ready Player Me avatar. So it's a very different construct than the Web 2 and the Web 3 virtual worlds that kind of make you be within their avatar system. Another great example of this open metaverse is what the team is doing at MetaTr Versal. They have been gathering together since 2021, where they actually have portal crawls and they go from platform to platform. And I want to show a video of that. I edited this video very quickly, but what you're going to see is avatars traversing through platforms. Now, please understand, they're not going from world to world. They're going from platform to platform, and I think that's really interesting. It's almost like they've created an airport to be able to travel to different platforms, and that's why their avatars change. Now, these usually take about an hour or an hour and a half, and if you look at the window to the right, they're either on Discord or Zoom, and some of them are in VR, some of them are on web, and they're actually just jumping from platform to platform. And that's the Ben Irwin, Ivo Heining, Neil Trevette, and Terry Schuessler. And Terry said something earlier today in another talk about the emergence of web pages and how they went from 26 web pages to 10,000 web pages to millions of web pages, right? And right now we're at the 10,000s of worlds and hundreds of platforms. So what I'm saying is let's start mapping this so we understand, and we're gonna really get a playing field of what that evolution is like. So with this third axis that we have of the open metaverse, which is mostly comprised of WebXR, I came up with this idea of using those three planes to create a three-dimensional visualization of what the evolution of these platforms look like. And we have different strategies that we're using for this. I'm not tracking games or MMOs, so I want to be clear about that. A lot of people think that because the technology of the kind of that's fueling the metaverse is kind of comes from that world, but I'm more interested in tracking virtual worlds that offer social capabilities and have avatars, right? That's really important for me in my tracking. And then on my mapping effort, I am being assisted by two colleagues that are here right now. Stephen Van Loon, he's an experienced software engineer. He worked at LinkedIn for 4 years working on that. And he's helping me with utilizing many different technologies like Python and Babylon JS. And we're also looking at being able to showcase this in AR or eventually holograms. So that would be really cool to be able to see that. And then my good friend, Ivo Heining, is weighing in as an advisor, and she has been part of the whole of these type of platforms for a very long time, and she actually just wrote a book on generative AI art. And she's an organizer of OMI, which I want to talk about, which is a open source community of industry professionals, creators that are building interoperable technology. We meet every Wednesday and we talk about these things, and we also plan portal crawls, and we figure out different ways to create technology that will facilitate this interoperability. So why is mapping important, right? Why go through all of this work, right? I feel that the main reason is we'll be able to track the evolution of these virtual worlds and then actually see which worlds connect to which, right? And be able to have an understanding of what those bridges are so we can facilitate future interaction. Plus, if you're an investor, you're a world builder, you want to be able to see and visualize how these worlds are evolving. Right now, they're only being tracked in lists and spreadsheets. So why would we track something that's three-dimensional in a two-dimensional plane? This is one of the ideas that we're working on. Steve and I have really been, trailblazing on different ideas. One is to make them get the data from the database and then map it as molecules that attach together. I even thought of maybe having them behave like cells. This latest idea that we're working on is actually using like spirals of galaxies when they spiral and they come together. So you would have the web, two worlds, pull that information from the spreadsheet, bring it into a 3D world with all the code, and then that interacts and revolves. And then you would have the next set of worlds. And then eventually you'll be able to zoom in and out and then be able to look at each of the spheres and the representative worlds. And imagine if you're able to actually use that as an interface to jump in and out of worlds. This itself could be a UI for a future MetaTr versal technology where you can visit all worlds and not have to go through the antiquated login. Now, as the head-mounted displays continue to evolve and the AI democratizes the metaverse with user-generated content, right? Because if you're able to prompt a world into existence, you know that worlds are just going to be created like WordPress pages, basically. It might take many years, but we might find ourselves in a future full of interconnected worlds. And as these technologies progress, we need to be diligent about ethics, privacy, accessibility, protecting vulnerable groups, and equality. So if you'd like to learn more about these principles, please visit the XR Guild, an association of professionals who support a common set of standards, and they're outlined in xrguild.org. You can also find an in-depth article by Avi Barsif, who actually just spoke in the main room. And in his essay, there is a lot of information that it's relevant to this conversation. And also on Friday, June 2nd at 10 a.m., there on Ballroom B, there's a talk on XR and ethics. And it is imperative for us to approach these virtual environments with utmost care and diligence, especially when considering the impact in younger generations. We must learn from the past mistakes of social media and ensure that they are not replicated. It is our responsibility to create improved systems and strive for an enhanced immersive future that aligns with our values rather than perpetuating the problems of the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Julian.